Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Curated show for Mass Exodus 2019. My name is Brittany Patty, and over the past 6 months, I've been acting as project coordinator for this year's production. I want to thank you all for coming tonight in support of the amazing and talented communication and design students from the Ryerson School of Fashion. This evening, I'm excited to say that you will be hearing from two of our honored guests, Dr. Ben Berry, Chair of the School of Fashion at the Ryerson University, and our curator, Vivek Shreya. To start this evening's address, I would like to invite Janine Webster, Academic Coordinator for the School of Fashion, to deliver a land acknowledgement.
Hi there. Toronto's in the dish with one spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. In subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. This acknowledgement is often used at the beginning of Ryerson events, but why is it important? Residential schools run by the church and the Canadian government implemented a policy of forced assimilation where children were not allowed to speak their own language or practice their own culture. A role fashion played in this was how children were forced to adopt Western haircuts and clothing as a mechanism of control. This is not ancient history. The last school closed in 1996. Sawa atlak katlamu sucha nupu aklabu. That's as far as I can count in my father's language. And this is a direct result of the residential school system. My father, my aunties, uncles, my grandparents, they all went to residential schools. Indigenous people across Canada are trying very hard to reclaim what was lost in language, cultural practices, and traditions. This is why the land acknowledgement is important to me, because it honors the truth part of truth and reconciliation. I offer my experience to you as an example to think about the next time you hear the land acknowledgement. And in return, I ask that you think about your role in the Dish with One Spoon Treaty as a student, a professor, or a Canadian. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Janine. When Janine prompted us to think about what the land acknowledgement and the Dish with One Spoon Treaty means to us personally, I thought of my place in it as a student, as a fashion student at Ryerson University in Toronto. I think in this space, it is important that we center Indigenous narratives and Indigenous fashion in our curriculum. Yeah. Thank you. Tonight marks the end of Mass Exodus 2019, that began earlier this week with our installation. Mass Exodus is the culmination of tremendous hard work from the 3rd and 4th year design and communication students from the School of Fashion. The theme for this year's production was an inevitable shift. When you look at this idea of an inevitable shift from various perspectives, it can take on different meanings. Culturally, globally, in the fashion industry, and in others, movement, change, and growth are constant. From the perspective of 4th year design and communication students at Ryerson, this shift represents one of the biggest changes that they have undergone thus far, entering the industry at large. Mass Exodus 2019 would not have been possible without a number of individuals working to make it happen. Firstly, I want to thank Sadia Kamran, Kira Nickel, Audrey Colfin-Reynolds, Janine Webster, Ben Berry, and the entire School of Fashion office at Ryerson University for the support that they provided. The Faculty of Communication and Design. I'm going to thank a lot of people. The Faculty of Communication and Design at Ryerson University and RTA. A special thank you as well to our production sponsor, FMAV, for enabling us to bring the vision for our production to life. It would not have been possible without your expertise. Additionally, to the Daniel Spectrum and their on-site crew for being so supportive over the past couple of days. I also want to acknowledge all of the 4th year fashion design and communication students at the School of Fashion who participated in our events and to congratulate them on their success. Finally, I want to thank the 3rd year fashion communication students in the fashion promotion class that were responsible for the vision of Mass Exodus that you experienced across all of our events. Everyone worked tirelessly. I have a lot of people to thank. Everyone worked tirelessly over the past few months to design and execute this production, and I'm incredibly proud of what we were able to accomplish. I also want to thank Daniel Drack and Robert Ott, our faculty advisors, for guiding us and keeping us on our toes throughout this experience. And lastly, but certainly not least, I want to invite my fellow Mass Exodus executive members onto the stage. Standing with me is Yaz Blackley, our storytelling lead, Sarah Calloway, our installation lead, Sarmina Manku, our runway experience lead, and Blair Savage, our runway presentation lead. With the innovation, dedication to details, and passion that these individuals demonstrated throughout this entire process, I really believe that anything can be accomplished. I could not be more fortunate to stand alongside them tonight and to welcome you to Mass Exodus 2019 and begin this evening's event. Please welcome our first honored guest, Dr. Ben Berry, Chair of Fashion at the School of Fashion at Ryerson University.
I love fashion. Fashion allows us to imagine possibilities and design them into reality. Fashion is a portal into new worlds, and for many of us, utopias. Fashion connects our bodies to the land, to the water, to the sky, and it connects us to ourselves and to each other. For over 65 years, the School of Fashion at Ryerson University has led the fashion industry. Our graduates run their own labels and media companies. They make major creative and business decisions for fashion, design, and communication brands. Think American Vogue, Canada Goose, Fendi, and Facebook. And their artistic and research practices transform the trajectories of academic fields, of government policies, of business strategies, and of cultures. Our graduates boldly lead our fashion industry, and they shape our society. The theme for Mass Exodus 2019 is an inevitable shift. The theme was created by our third-year fashion promotion students, and I couldn't imagine a more timely theme at this point in the history of our fashion industry and of our school. We're about to enter the third decade of the 21st century, and the fashion industry is undergoing an inevitable shift, a shift that requires us to shift knowledges, to shift practices, to shift power in order to succeed within it. How can we integrate sustainable design and production that protects our workers and our earth? How can we value craft and quality rather than newness and speed? How can we foster indigenous fashion resurgence, the original fashion here on Turtle Island, and work towards decolonization? And how can we support non-binary collections and transgress the gender binary that limits alternative gender expressions? What impact do we want our work to have on our fashion industry and on our world, not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but for the next 7 generations? At the School of Fashion, we're answering these questions by centering new worldviews and new actions in order to continue our legacy of leadership in the fashion industry. The fashion industry's inevitable shift is also grounded in building connections between fashion and other industries. The School of Fashion is housed alongside the 8 best schools in the creative and cultural industries in Canada within the Faculty of Communication and Design. In this creative ecosystem, we share courses, we share knowledge sets, and we develop new skills for the 21st century. We also partner with the best creative universities around the world to learn from each other through exchanges, collaborative classes, and research projects. The School of Fashion will continue to lead the fashion industry in the 21st century, just as our students and graduates have done for the past 65 years, because we love fashion. We're not part of an inevitable shift. We are leading it. And tonight we celebrate the newest group of leaders in the fashion and creative industries, our fourth year fashion communication and fashion design students. Our fashion communication students showcase their capstone projects in an exhibition on Thursday night. These projects explored various themes, including representations of the deaf and improving the aesthetics of hearing aids, the commodification of Black cultures by non-Black audiences, transformations in trend forecasting, digital technologies and customization in fashion, the influence of RuPaul's Drag Race on drag aesthetics, fashion branding for Generation Z, and the history and making of Chinese ceramics. These students have used diverse medias, including books and graphic novels, virtual reality, board games, jewelry, photography, typeface development, websites, transmedia campaigns, documentary films, 3D printed accessories, and laser cutting. Our fashion design students showcased their capsule collections on this runway earlier today. They told important narratives through their work. Some students told stories about their own backgrounds and cultures, including their indigeneity, their home provinces, and their countries of birth. Other students queered their designs and challenged gender binaries. They centered sustainability during their design process, and they pushed the limits of creativity by drawing on methods and processes used by artists. The capsule collections also shared important and difficult human experiences, including broken relationships, funerals and demons, and phantom limbs. Students used various design practices, including indigenous beading, digital printing, hand dyeing, laser cutting, weaving, knitting, patchwork, metalwork, 3D printing, and innovative draping. This range of topics and this range of approaches used by our students push the boundaries of fashion and proclaim their leadership in the fashion industry of the 21st century. Tonight, we're also grateful to our faculty and staff at the School of Fashion. They bring their compassion, dedication, and genius to our classrooms and school administration each day. The incredible work of our fourth-year students reflects how our faculty and staff have challenged and supported them, not just this year, but throughout their time at Ryerson. Mass Exodus is a completely student-produced event, and I have such huge thanks tonight for the third-year fashion promotions class, the incredible executive team, and the instructors, Daniel Drack and Robert Ott. Each year, the School of Fashion invites an icon in the creative and cultural industries to serve as curator of Mass Exodus. The role of the curator is to select which fashion design capsule collections to showcase in the curated show that you're about to witness. The curator views the students' illustrations, reads their design philosophies, and watches their capsule collections on the runway during the 3 shows that took place earlier today. The curated collections are examples of student work that compels and captivates and represent the School of Fashion's guiding principles of diversity, heritage, and innovation. Now, choosing a curator is usually a long and complex process, but it wasn't in this case. When thinking about the theme of Mass Exodus 2019, the name on our lips was instant: Vivek Shreya. Vivek Shreya is an artist whose body of work crosses the boundaries of music, literature, visual art, and film. Her best-selling book, I'm Afraid of Men, was heralded by Vanity Fair as cultural rocket fuel. Her album with the Queer Songbook Orchestra, Part-Time Woman, was included in CBC's list of Best Canadian Albums of 2017. She's an assistant professor of creative writing at the University of Calgary. Fashion is intimately connected to Vivek's artistry. She's involved in co-creating the looks that she wears for her performances. In fact, she creates many of her looks with our own School of Fashion faculty member, Mick Carter. Mick teaches our new gender non-binary fashion design course. Vivek inspires our students to draw from their identities and experiences when they develop their creative work. She allows many of our students who seldom see themselves and their stories in the creative fields to be seen and to be heard. And she demonstrates the power of the cultural industries, not only to ignite our imaginations of what could be, but to lay and to slay a road to take us there. Vivek is leading an inevitable shift in the world. She is a role model of how we can lead our own shift in fashion. And so with that, it is my great honor to welcome our curator for Mass Exodus, Vivek Shreya.
My name is Vivek Shreya, and I'm grateful to be a guest on this land. I'm very honored to be this year's curator for Mass Exodus. I'm especially honored to have been given the opportunity to spend the day with you, Ryerson School of Fashion students, taking in your incredible, innovative designs where you've pulled inspiration from a vast range of unpredictable, cheeky, and moving sources, including your Cree heritage, your breakups, your relationship with your grandmother and her dementia, the Me Too movement, code switching, The Simpsons, 90s Hong Kong cinema, ancient African architecture, a desire to protect the biodiversity of the oceans, and Tibetan people in exile, to name just a few. I see this as an immense privilege. Many, if not most of you, are more formally educated in the area of fashion than I am, so I hope that you know that everything I say tonight comes from a place of deep humility and respect. Thank you for inviting me into your world, and thank you especially to Ben Barry for this invitation. When I think of myself at my most fashion-forward, it's not now. It was me in grade 7. Like most teenagers, I looked to fashion as a way to tell my story. But unlike my classmates whose stories were about telling the same stories as their peers and wearing the same brands, I was excited about how I might tell a different story. To me, putting myself together in creative ways was how I expressed joy. For starters, I looked at random objects not as random, but as possible accessories. I looked at headphones, not just as a way to listen to music, but unplugged, the headphone cord added new lines to my look, and when I sashayed down the hallway, the dangling cord accented my movement. I looked at an empty onion bag, not as something to throw out, but as a hat that added a web of bright orange over my jet black hair. And why limit a winter scarf to just being worn around the neck when I could push it through my belt loops and again add lines and movement below my waist? Of course, there is a price to pay for difference, and when I began to get called faggot, I think that some part of me initially thought that these were compliments on my appearance. It didn't immediately occur to me that wanting to tell a different story with my appearance was risky. But once it was beaten into me, I learned to dress just like everyone else. As an adult, I mourn my grade 7 self, and I try to summon them in my fashion choices now. And my first request to all of you is to try to do the same. I know that the implication of a mass exodus is moving towards the future, but we can't move towards the future responsibly without honoring and learning from our past. Try to go back to a time when you didn't care what anyone thought about what you looked like, before you needed to get all those likes on Instagram or grades. How did you dress then? What risks did you take? Bring back your child self in your approach to fashion, that innocence and joy. Fashion can be serious business, but don't forget the part of you that gets excited about clothing, that feeling of pleasure when sketching your designs. This element of joy was a big factor in my curation choices for tonight's show. My second request is to seek inspiration from every day, from things that are overlooked, from so-called garbage even, like onion bags. Find ways to use materials that minimize damage to our planet. Many of my fashion choices were laughed at and are still laughed at, but being a trailblazer requires a willingness to be okay with being unpopular, because often experimentation and being unpopular go hand in hand. And in fashion especially, experimentation is essential. One of the most common and dangerous assumptions about fashion is that it's frivolous, it's trivial, it's superficial. Being trans, how I put myself together is seldom about glamour. My appearance most of the time is tied to safety. And for many gender nonconforming people, not conforming in our appearance is a significant risk. So I want to remind you that the work you've been doing here and the work that you will continue to do, regardless of what anyone says, including your parents, is absolutely not frivolous, not trivial, not superficial. When you are creating clothing, you have the possibility to create something that reveals someone's higher truth. You have the possibility of facilitating someone being able to be their best and truest self. What an incredible gift. And simultaneously, you have the power to create just as much damage. Show of hands. How many of you have had that experience of going into a change room and trying something on and then leaving the store, not hating the store, but hating your body or part of yourself? I mean, I feel like there could be more hands right now. Sorry? Aging, yes, exactly. Thank you for your honesty. For so long, clothing has been largely produced for a small group of bodies. And this is where it's imperative to make the connection between fashion and homophobia, fashion and ageism, fashion and racism, fashion and ableism, fashion and fat phobia, fashion and classism, fashion and misogyny. Because not only do the people who have the privilege of having clothing fit their body types get to have their bodies and identities validated as normal, there is a large population who are regularly told through clothing that our bodies and our identities are not normal, not valid, not beautiful. For the past 4 years, I've been frequently wearing designs made by Mick Carter for his company Lumostrano, including this piece tonight. And this experience has been a revelation. Every time I put on his designs, I'm reminded that there's sorry. See, fashion isn't trivial. Fashion's emotional. Actually, is Mick in the audience? I love embarrassing my friends. Is Mick here? No? Okay. Or are you hiding right now, Mick? Okay. Fashionably late. Okay. Every time I put on his designs, I'm reminded that there is nothing wrong with my body, my skin, my gender. His designs have single-handedly set me on a path of unlearning and healing. So it's wonderful to know that he is the instructor of a new non-binary fashion design course here at Ryerson. His clothing not only allows me to embrace who I am, they show me what clothing should feel like all the time and for everyone. Don't you all wish you had one of these pieces? It turns out I don't actually have to spend my life hiding my body in an oversized, overpriced black sack. So as you continue to move forward, my final request is for you to think about this immense power you have. You might not be able to make clothing for everyone, but think about how you might use your power to bring someone closer to being their truest self. Think about whose bodies your designs support and also alienates. Because fashion should never result in self-hatred when it has the immense possibility to generate self-love. Girl, it's your body. Don't ever say you're sorry, 'cause you're not a copy. All those years I wore myself hard. All those years I kept you barred. I'm never gonna hide you, never gonna fight you again. Not for any man. Thank you so much.
you.